Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Barry, Season 4, Episode 3. Great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, let's start off. The opening to this episode confused me because I was like, they're dumping something out. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, what? It took me a second to be like, oh, you idiot, it's the sand. It wasn't until I saw Hank and Cristobal that I was like, all right, it's the sand, you idiot. That's the operation they're mixed up in. But then like some dude shows up in the suit. I was like, who is that? And they calling him Toro. And I'm looking at him for a second. I was like, that's not who I think it is. I had to keep rewinding. I'm like, that can't be, especially with the name Toro. It totally was. It's Guillermo del Toro, dude. I was like, that's so wild. I was like, I wonder, did Bill Hader have to call in a favor for that? Because I'm curious, like, has Guillermo, like, del Toro wanted to do any acting or whatever? Because I know, like, in Death Stranding, his likeness was used for a character, but he doesn't voice the character. It's someone else doing the voice, but it's literally Guillermo del Toro in that. But it's just his likeness. He's the character model, essentially. But I was like, dude, I wonder, has he like gotten the like actor itch before? Or did like Bill Hader like reach out to him just for like a special funny cameo thing? I mean, to be fair, it's like when you actually look in this, like, I mean, looking back on the show, he has like, there have been casting situations where like big time casting people, like there was some person they had shown in the show who was a big time Hollywood casting person, like she does a lot of casting for stuff, and another person was like a big time like director and writer that I wasn't aware of. So it's like, you know, Bill Hader, I don't know whether Bill just like goes out of his way, especially considering like it makes sense too, because it's like I'd actually didn't realize this until like I think the Wenger show on the Wenger show. They had talked about, they had brought up something I forgot, and that was that Bill Hader's directing every episode this season. So I completely forgot about it. So like maybe also being able to get like a big time director in there just in that regard. I don't know, maybe Guillermo reached out and be like, oh, can I be in Barry? And it's like, sure, why not? We'll find something for you. Or maybe Bill Hader just thought, I don't know, like, or maybe just the casting people in general thought it'd be funny. I don't know. That was just wild to me. But I love... getting past all that, I went on a huge tangent there, I apologize, but I love that, oh yeah, we're hiring these hitmen, and then Hank is like, wait, aren't those podcasters? It's like, yeah, they have this podcast where they talk about, like, they find these weird gadgets and stuff like that, but more often than not, they don't work. Like, I think, a jacket that you can cook s'mores in or something like that, and they're like, oh yeah, it's stupid, and Toro's like, I bought one of those jackets. I bought one of those and it works fine. And Hank's like, yeah. But I love that he's like, well, wouldn't it, because him and Cristobal were like, wouldn't it be an issue considering like they are podcasters? Wouldn't people know it's them? It's like, yes, but it's voice only. But then Hank's like, yeah, but that's my biggest issue with it. It's like they're making fun of these products, but it's an audio only podcast, and you're asking me to just kind of visualize the thing. Like, one, it's like, and I love that Toto, it's like, well, they include a YouTube link that lets you see what the object is looking like. He's like, yeah, but what am I supposed to be doing? Because more often than not, when I'm listening to it, I'm driving. So what am I supposed to, like, open a link during? And Toro's just staring at him. He's like, okay, I'll do that from now on. I'll just open the link from now on. I love it. So there's that. Also, a ghost from the past, what was it? Bahir ended up, wasn't that his name? Because NoHo Hank said it in this episode. I'm like, I think I know that guy. Isn't that one of the Chechens that's still alive? Because wasn't he the one that was still like, when like, the police and so, like, the scene where like the police showed up and it turned into a gunfight, like one of them like turned himself into like a suicide bomber and blew up some cars and stuff. And one guy like dropped the phone when he was talking to like the leadership back in, because I want to say, like, one of the leaders was Michael Ironside, wasn't it? So it was like, but I remember the dude dropped the phone and he ran. I think that was the last time we saw that dude, wasn't it? I think so. If that's the same dude, I think it is. I don't know if I'm being crazy about that. But yeah, he's showing up and telling Hank, like, hey, you have two choices. Like, fall back on our side or be done with, because, like, new leadership, like, the leadership back home has decided to send someone else to kind of run things here in LA because you've kind of failed spectacular. Like, obviously, we can all admit the whole situation for the Chechens in general has not been the greatest situation in LA, you know? So it's kind of going severely sideways. It's going as sideways can be, you know? So So Hank got to deal with that. So it's like, cool, I got to, make my decision. But he does, obviously him and Cristobal are in this together. It would mean abandoning Cristobal after everything they've been through together. So it's like, that's a no-go. So how will Hank handle that? Well, we'll see. So on another side of things, we had Lon going to visit Barry to try and get Barry's side of things, which Barry's not talking to him because Barry's already bringing up, he's talking to the feds about, I kept also wondering, like, why the main cop, like, he's been in the show before. I think the main Fed guy that talks, I mean, both of them talk, but, like, the one who kind of has, like, the more dialogue, that guy, I was like, why does he look so familiar? He played Joe's uncle in the show Ordinary Joe. That was his uncle. I was like, yeah, but I'm sure that guy was in the show beforehand. I just don't remember it as clearly. Maybe, but it's like, yeah, like more recently it was like Ordinary Joe or something. I was seeing him because I was like, he looks so familiar. I just couldn't place him what I knew him from. Ordinary Joe is like a short-lived NBC show from, was that last year or 2021? It might have been, I think it was last year. No, it might have been 2021. It might have been 2021 to 2022. Either way, sadly, the show got canceled after one season. Tensions and all that aside. Either way, like, he had brought up the fact that it's Cristobal and Hank, and, it's like, Jerry's like, oh yeah, they decided to kind of they're actually a really sweet couple, they're in love, and the other Fed is like, well, lucky for them, at least, he was kind of, like, heartbroken, because he was kind of like, oh, at least they, I'm glad for them that they were able to find love, at least somebody's able to find love, so it's like, I love that he just adds in, like, these one little lines of dialogue, these one-liners out of nowhere. But yeah, Barry heard from Lon about Gene going around running his mouth, and it's like, right, Gene telling all this stuff is going to screw up his deal with the Fed, so it's like, I need Gene to shut up, I also need you not to run the story. Well, Gene finds himself in a very complicated spot when, like, word got back to, like, the chief of police or whatever about how the person that, who knows about it, because he's talking to Tom and Gene, and it's like, yeah, Barry's making a deal with the feds. It's like, wait, he could get out? It's like, don't worry about it. I mean, shouldn't we be worried about a witness protection type of thing? He's like, don't worry. Like, that's only an issue, like, them coming after someone and kind of going, it's like, that only comes up when they're ex-military. And Gene's like, Barry is ex-military, and the cop's like, oh. I love that everyone is so shit at their jobs in this show. He was basically saying, like, oh, it was all going to be fine. And he even said, like, yeah, I won't tell you about the situations of a similar circumstance. He's like, oh, why? Because they're classified? He's like, no, they're just so disturbing, I don't want to think about them. I love that he was super honest about it. So I love that Gene's like, okay, so let me tell you, so hypothetically speaking, what if I ended up putting on like a one-man show to someone, and I love the camera panned out to outside the car. I was expecting to hit the brakes. I wasn't expecting Tom just to swerve and ram into a parked car. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, Gene, what are you doing? Talking to Lon from Vanity Fair? He's like, I'm sorry. We need to get to him before this is all figured out, before, like, Lon does any more damage. So they end up breaking into Lon's house. His wife is there, and she knows who Gene is, which I love. Gene still stressing. I wish you wouldn't call it the Barry Berkman article. I wish you'd call it the Gene Cousineau article, but yes, we're about it. It's like, well, he wants to go talk to one of the victims' fathers. Do you know who that might be? It's like, oh boy. And Lon did go see Jim, and I love it. I love that it's like, I went to go see Barry, but he was super upset about all this stuff that Gene said. And Jim's like, you were talking to Gene? He's like, yeah, he told me everything. The moment he was like, come into my garage, I'm like, what are you about to do, Jim? And when Gene eventually shows up, he's spraying out the back of his trunk. I was like, there's no way you actually killed the guy. Like, you're crazy, but you're not going to do that. And it's like, yeah, Gene, I'm going to need to keep you isolated so you're not out here running your mouth. It's like, well, what happened to Lon? It's like, oh, Lon's not going to be talking to anybody for a very long time. It's like, the fact is he phrased it like that, was like, he definitely didn't kill the guy, but you're washing out the back of your trunk to him, like, what's going on? We see Lon back at home, his editor or whatever, it's like, Lon, like, why aren't you saying anything? Even his wife is trying to get him to talk, and he starts speaking German. It's like, oh, since when can Lon speak German? He's never spoken German before. I'm like, what the fuck I mean, we saw some of Jim's tactics with how he dealt with Gene, but what did he do to Lon that he's not even speaking the same language? I mean, he must have did something like rewired his brain, because obviously you hear that story about some people can like wake up from a coma or something like that, and all of a sudden like some wires got crossed in their brains, and now it's like, oh, this person now has like a Scottish or Irish accent, or like they speak a language they didn't speak before, something like it's something, the brain's a weird and crazy thing. So Jim must have done some damage. It looked like he was in some dirt, so I'm wondering, did he put Lon, because he was cleaning out the back of his trunk, did he bury Lon in some dirt or something? Or maybe like he buried him alive and then, well, they were in the garage. I don't know. Cause why was he like, it looked like he was covered in dirt because he had like black marks all over his face. Jim did something to him to the point that he's now speaking German. So what does this mean going forward? Like, what does this mean for Gene? I have no idea what to really fully expect from that. Obviously, I love that Barry was super upset. Once again, all the points he's kind of making are kind of the same points that are Fuchs is making about him, of like, oh, all I've done for you, all I did was try to save you, fuck you, and you're trying to fuck me. And it's just like Barry's getting so upset. So he calls Hank. It's like, yo, Hank, I think we need to take care of this. I think we need to take care of Gene. He's out there running his mouth. He could be an issue. But it's like, oh, why are you lying to me, Barry? He's like, what are you talking about? I know you're talking to the feds. He's like, no, now who's lying? He got on the defensive. But it's like, yeah, Hank knows what you're up to. I don't know if Barry's figured out that Fuchs knows what he did and Fuchs sold him out. I mean, that's going to be a big time issue. So, but yeah, especially because for Hank, it's like, all I've ever done is be a friend to you, and all you do is take. And it's like Barry's making that same argument. He himself is making also that same argument about Gene. All you do is take, despite all I've done for you. It's like, the sad thing is, Hank has always been a better friend to people around him than they have been to him. It's like, it's so sad because, you know, no, Hank is actually a really good friend to have, but Barry hasn't always been the best of friend to him. And it's like, yeah, you're only trying to get close to me now because you were asking me for a favor, or you're also fucking me. Like, because you're trying to screw me and Cristobal over because you are selling us out to the feds. So, but Barry got super, he was like, yo, if I get out of here, you're fucking dead, you're fucked. And Hank is like, you'll get out and it'll be my birthday. It's like, that's foreshadowing the fact is Barry is going to end up getting out some shape or form, which the ending kind of applies, but we'll get to that when we get there. But I'm like, oh boy. And it's sad. You could tell how much that hurt Hank, because it's like, oh, I'm turning my back on my friend. I mean, Barry doesn't know. Hank was literally going to try and break you out of prison. Funny enough, it kind of still happens on its own anyway, but like I said, we'll get to that in a second. So, and all this is happening, Fuchs is trying to warn some like guards about the fact that Barry's about to get killed, because he had another epiphany, because I think he was watching, I don't know what movie that was. It was maybe The Professionals. I don't know. I'm not well versed in movies. But I want to say it was like Tom Cruise. I don't know if that was Dustin Hoffman or that was Sean Penn. I don't remember. It looked like it was Dustin Hoffman, but I don't know. I think they were in The Professionals together. Like I said, I think that's what that movie was. I don't know. But yeah, he's like, no, that's us. And so now he wants to save Barry. It's like, man, you were so flip-floppy. You've always been flip-floppy when it came to Barry. Understandably, it's like, also like, I mean, he's not selling you out necessarily. He's mainly selling out Hank and Cristobal. But it's like, well, I guess by selling out Hank and Cristobal, you're also selling out Fuchs. But I mean, we don't know if he's really talked about anything Fuchs related. He's mainly focused on the Chechen and Bolivian side of things. So we don't know if that really includes Fuchs. And I'm sure Fuchs is going to find out, oh, so you weren't selling me out? Oh. Okay, it's like, no, we're in a good place. I just decided, but it's like Barry was going to get out and he was going to leave you because he was going to take Sally with him. So yeah, and since we're just already on the Barry stuff, let's stay on the Barry stuff. Obviously, we have some other witness protection people brought in, and I love that Barry's just kind of like sitting there and listening to them kind of talk, and then he looks and he sees a nervous guy in the back. I was like, is that Fred Armisen? Super is. I was like, okay. And he's sweating. I'm like, what's going on? And then Barry just happens to look at the spot he's looking at. I was like, at first I was like, is he looking at a security camera that got turned off or something? But he just kept looking up, and then Barry's like, yeah, that guy's here to kill me. It's like, what? No, he was brought here with you. It's like, no, he wasn't with me. He brings out like a pin or whatever. He goes, die, but it explodes in his hand, blowing off his fingers. A guy from the ceiling pops out, starts shooting, literally killing everyone else in the room. Barry ends up getting his hand on a gun, ends up killing the guy. The guy falls out the roof, but he's hung up by all the cables. And that's when the shit's starting to pop off. I'm like, wait, is Barry going to use this opportunity to just is he just going to break out of prison? I'm like, cool. So, once again, you were trying to break him out before, but he's kind of breaking out on his own because of circumstances you created, because Barry's like, no, something's not right about this. The guy's a little too nervous. It's like, maybe we shouldn't hire podcasters in the first place. Also, that means that podcast is done because the two hosts were killed in an attempt to perform a hit on an incarcerated hitman. So, that's wild. So, I wonder how Hank's going to feel about that, because it's double-fold. One, a podcast he does listen to is now done. Maybe new hosts are going to be brought on, and they'll do things differently that more fit what Hank wants from the podcast, for it to be more visually friendly, because it being an audio podcast isn't very friendly, isn't conducive with the nature of what the podcast is about. But also, they failed to kill Barry, so that kind of sucks. Oh, 3 times. It also sucks too, because Barry made it clear that if he gets out of prison, he's going to get you, and you're just like, oh, cool. So he might actually go back to working with the Chechens and stuff, because it means he has protection and the army group that he needs to go after to deal with Barry. I mean, they have their own squad with what they've built up, so that might be enough, but it might make Hank feel a certain way, and it's like, cool, and he's going to tell Cristobal that it's like, yeah, Barry might be coming after us, type of thing. So, once again, that's based on if Barry gets out of prison, but the fact is they're like, wait, where's Berkman? And he's gone, so pretty good chance he ended up escaping prison, which is not, so I was like, okay, so is he going to be in jail the entire season? And now he's on the run, he's going to try and take Sally with him. Sally's not going to vibe with that, even because he's still hung up on the whole, yeah, she feels safe with me. Yeah, let's see how she feels when it's like, yeah, there's literally a manhunt out for you, you're a wanted fugitive, this and that. It's like, oh, dude, Barry's super dead. Barry is going to die at the end of this series. Now there's going to be a twist, so he's going to end up faking his death, and everyone's going to think he died and he disappeared and he's living in a new place. Like, I could definitely see that being ending, like a little bit of a spoilers, a Dexter, specifically Dexter, not Dexter New Blood. Not unless it ends up having a bit of a Dexter ending. If this series had a Dexter ending, I feel like it'd probably sit better with people than Dexter, because I think the lead up to Dexter's finale, because I know a lot of people didn't like. Season 4 was like the last season I think people really, really were on board with. I heard some people like season 4. I liked 6, what was it, 5, 6, 7, and 8? Yeah, it was 8 seasons. I liked all those seasons, but I know it was not the case of, like, once again, season 4 was the one that I think most people still liked. Whatever the case may be, I feel like an ending like Dexter could probably work, depending on how they went about it in the show, if that's the route they're going. Once again, it could easily just be a thing of, yeah, Barry's dead at the end of this. Like, I don't expect him to just be like, I don't know, I just feel like there's no way they're going to let Barry just get away with everything. Arguably the way you get away with everything is by being dead, so kind of a little bit of a Walter White situation there, so, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see where things kind of go on that front. But, speaking of Sally, her first teaching class is today, and, I love that she's like, all right, how many, because she's super nervous, this is her first time at this, and it's like, how many of you are here because of the entitled C girl video? And one dude raises his hand, but he puts his hand down immediately when he realizes he's the only one. But everyone else had like her back, being like, no, it's like, you were caught in your bad moment. Like, we all have our bad moments. And one person's like, yeah, I get in fights with my sister all the time and it gets nasty like that. You shouldn't basically be defined by this one moment. It's like, it was taken out of context, it was overblown. It's like, oh, it made Sally feel good. So then they're running, they're doing some exercises. One of the people that went up is Kristen, and Sally pulled a Jean, because that was our first introduction to all this in episode 1, was Jean's teaching style of how he pushed Sally, said some horrible things to get some emotion out of her, and she's doing the same thing to Kristen. And yeah, Kristen's up there kind of in tears, and it's like, see, that's what we have to do. Like, she talked about vulnerability, but they're like, but they called her out being like, no, that was abusive. And she's like, what? He's like, but she's like, this is a Gene Cousineau method. It's like, just because it was done to you doesn't mean you should do it to someone else. I was like, ooh. I mean, because, like, that's the thing. Literally, no one in that class had an issue with what Gene did. No one had an issue with the way Gene handled things. In that first episode. So it's so funny and sad and heartbreaking, especially with everything that Sally's been dealing with the Barry situation, her career being where it is. And now on top of that, you're just like, oh yeah, my first steps into this teaching thing, and it blew up in my face. Except Kristen decided to stick around. She was like, okay, don't sit there feeling sorry for yourself, because she was like, oh my God, this was such a stupid idea. But Kristen's like, don't feel sorry for yourself. She's like, the fact of the matter is, obviously you're super unhinged, but I've been to 3 other acting classes, and you're the only one that's able to get something out of me, because it turns out she does have a gig lined up. But the fact is, it's because, yeah, she's a pretty woman, so it's like, that's kind of what got her the gig. So she needed someone to draw something out of her. She's only got one line, but she's like, I need to nail this. So Sally sees her redemption, because it seems like, oh, like, for one, it being a one-on-one will probably make it even more impactful for Sally. But it's like, okay, I've been given a second chance. Someone's willing to take a second chance, technically a third chance on me in this regard. So, but yeah, I mean, it all kind of, showcases, like, once again, kind of like some of our core characters of just how jacked up they are. I mean, we see like 3 core characters of Jean, Sally, and Barry, of how jacked up they are in their own, with everything Sally's had to deal with, once again, kind of her own, like, narcissism and stuff like that. And it is kind of sadly, like, we actually look at it in retrospect, it's like there is so much abuse she had to deal with from Sam, from Barry, from even Jean. But, like, she thought, it's kind of that sad, like, thing of like, oh yeah, it makes me a better artist, that pain, that trauma. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize I was kind of doing the same. Like, I mean, that's why she blew up at Natalie the way she did. There's so much buried beneath the surface. In Barry's case and Sally's case, yeah, Sally can be an asshole, but Barry is a murderous asshole. So even Jean can be an asshole, but there's a big distinction between being assholes and being a murderous asshole. So I'm so fascinated to see where things kind of go, especially on the Sally front with her and Kristen, like what that situation kind of becomes going forward, and also where all this takes all these other storylines going forward into the next episode as well. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.